My name is Avery Callahan, and I'm 34 years old. 18 months ago, my father slid a piece of paper across the table and said, "Sign this. Sell the house to Isabel for $250,000, or from today you are no longer part of this family. $250,000 for a house worth $750,000. The house my grandmother left me, her only grandchild who stayed by her side for the last 5 years of her life. They thought I would cry, they thought I would crumble. What they didn't know was that before that family meeting even took place, I had already made a phone call to the CEO of the company where my sister works. Growing up in the Callahan household meant living in Isabel's shadow. My parents never hid their preference. At dinner tables during holidays, in front of relatives, the comparisons were constant. Isabel was the golden child, ambitious, driven, destined for greatness. I was the afterthought. Isabel will go far, my mother used to say, her eyes bright with pride. And Avery, well, at least she's kind-hearted. Kind-hearted as if that were a consolation prize. When I chose to become an elementary school teacher, my father's disappointment was palpable. But when Isabel landed her position at Hargrove and Partners, a prestigious real estate development firm, my parents couldn't stop talking about it. At family gatherings, everyone crowded around Isabel asking about her deals and her corner office. No one ever asked what I was teaching that semester. To them, teaching children to read wasn't an accomplishment worth discussing. Grandmother Clara was different. She saw me, really saw me, when no one else bothered to look. Every Sunday afternoon, I'd drive to her Victorian house on Elmwood Avenue, and we'd sit on her porch drinking sweet tea while she told stories about her youth. "You remind me of myself, Avery," she once said. Quiet strength. People underestimate that. When the doctors diagnosed her with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, they gave her 18 months, maybe 2 years if she was lucky. Isabel was always too busy to visit. My parents came once, stayed for 45 minutes, and never returned. So I made a choice. I took a leave of absence from teaching. I moved into the guest bedroom of that Victorian house. For 5 years, I was there administering medications, cooking her favorite meals, holding her hand through the long nights when the pain was unbearable. My mother called once during that time, not to ask how Grandma was doing. "You're wasting your time, Avery," she said. "It's not like she has anything to leave you." I hung up without responding. Grandmother Clara passed away on a Tuesday morning in April, the sunrise painting her bedroom in shades of gold. Her hand was in mine. She was smiling. "I've prepared everything for you," she whispered. "Don't let anyone take it away." I didn't understand those words, not until the lawyer read her will. The reading took place in a downtown law office 3 weeks after the funeral. The attorney cleared his throat and read the words that changed everything. "I, Clara Marie Whitmore, being of sound mind and body, hereby bequeath my property at 1124 Elmwood Avenue to my granddaughter, Avery Elizabeth Callahan, the only one who stayed when everyone else left." The silence that followed was deafening. My father's face went pale. My mother's mouth fell open. Isabel's perfectly manicured fingers curled into fists. $750,000. That was the market value, and Grandma had left every brick, every floorboard, every memory to me. The pressure started 3 days after the funeral. My parents showed up without calling first. They sat in Grandma's living room like they owned the place. "Family should share," my father said. "Isabel needs this house for her future." "And what about my future?" I asked. They exchanged a glance. "Sweetheart, you're a teacher," my mother said. "Isabel is building something. She has ambitions." There it was. The same message I'd heard my entire life. Every day for 2 weeks they returned. Sometimes together, sometimes separately. My father threatened. My mother cried. Then came the so-called family meeting. Isabel arrived 20 minutes late in a designer blazer. My father slid the sales agreement across the table. "You sign this. You sell the house to Isabel for $250,000. I looked at the number. "The market value is $750,000. Isabel laughed. "It's family price," my mother said. "That's how families work." The phone rang at midnight. Isabel's name lit up my screen. Her voice was cold, professional, stripped of all warmth. "This little standoff you're staging is cute," she said. But you need to know who you're dealing with. I'm a senior project manager at one of the largest real estate firms in the state. I have connections you can't imagine. She mentioned my school, budget cuts, people who owed her favors. Then she hung up. I sat in the darkness for a long time after that. And then I did something I'd never done before. I opened my laptop and searched 3 words: Hargrove and Partners Leadership. The sealed envelope had been sitting in my purse for weeks. That night I finally opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter on Grandma's lavender stationery. My dearest Avery, if you're reading this, it means someone is trying to take what I've given you. I knew this might happen. If you need to protect yourself, call the number below. Sandra Rivera was my attorney for many years. She specializes in creative real estate solutions. Remember, keeping something doesn't always mean holding on with both hands. Sometimes the smartest grip is the loosest one. All my love, Grandma Clara. I called Sandra the next morning. After I explained everything, she asked a simple question. Have you ever heard of a sale-leaseback agreement? Then she said something that changed everything. Hargrove and Partners is actively searching for a property in your exact neighborhood. Their CEO, Nathan Hargrove, wants to establish a satellite office in the Victorian district. Your grandmother's house would be perfect. The irony wasn't lost on me. Isabel worked for a company whose CEO was looking for exactly what I had. My parents then chose the nuclear option. A family dinner with every aunt, uncle, and cousin gathered at the table. Halfway through the main course, my father stood up and announced to the room that I had refused to share Grandma's inheritance with Isabel. Disapproving glances landed on me like physical weights. My mother wept dramatically. And Isabel walked slowly around the table until she was standing directly behind me. My sister is a school teacher, she told the room. She doesn't understand real estate. She was just lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time. She placed a hand on my shoulder like a superior addressing an underling. I stood up. No dramatic speech, no tearful defense. Just the simple act of rising from my chair while everyone watched in stunned silence. I looked at my father, then my mother, then Isabel. Thank you, I said quietly. Thank you all for showing me exactly where I stand in this family. And I walked out. 2 weeks later, Nathan Hargrove sat across from me in my living room. He was tall, silver-haired, with the kind of presence that filled a room without trying. We walked through the entire house together. When the tour concluded, he stated the terms simply. Full market value, $750,000. A 15-year leaseback. I would retain the upper floors as a private residence. The ground floor would convert to office space. I read every page. Then I signed. The company-wide launch event invitation arrived at Isabel's desk 4 weeks later. Attendance mandatory for all senior project managers. The address was at 44 Elmwood Avenue. My address. On the evening of the launch, I watched from my front window as catering trucks arrived. White tents bloomed in the garden and string lights wound through the ancient oak trees. Then I saw her. Isabel's silver Mercedes pulled up to the curb. She stepped out, adjusting her blazer, checking her phone. Then she looked up at the house. I will never forget her face in that moment. The confusion first, followed by disbelief, followed by something close to horror. I opened the front door and stepped onto the porch. Our eyes met across the lawn. Hello, Isabel, I called out clearly. Welcome to the new office. During the official program, Nathan Hargrove publicly acknowledged me by name, praising my professionalism and business acumen in front of the entire company. Several executives shook my hand afterward. And through it all, Isabel stood near the back wall, her knuckles white around her champagne glass. When Hargrove announced that senior project managers would rotate through the satellite office weekly, with Isabel heading the regional accounts division housed there, I heard someone nearby gasp. My parents arrived within the hour, furious. You sold the house to outsiders, my father snapped. I sold it at fair market value, I said calmly, and I negotiated a lease that allows me to keep living here. He stepped closer. This was supposed to stay in the family. It was staying in the family, Dad. With me. That's what Grandma wanted. My mother appeared beside him, mascara streaking her cheeks. How could you humiliate Isabel in front of her entire company? Isabel threatened my career first, I said quietly. I simply made sure I had options. My father opened his mouth. Then, for the first time I could remember, he closed it without speaking. Word spread quickly inside Hargrove and Partners. Within a week, everyone knew the story. The ambitious project manager who had tried to pressure her own sister out of an inherited home, and the sister who had quietly sold the property to their mutual employer. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Isabel's car pulled into my driveway at 8:45 in the morning. I made a point of being visible, watering the garden as she walked past, collecting my mail, drinking coffee on the porch. We never spoke, but we didn't need to. The shift in how her colleagues treated her said everything. 3 months of silence passed. Then, on a Sunday morning in October, my mother called. Her voice was smaller, less certain. "I just wanted to check on you," she said. It wasn't an apology, but it was something. A crack in the wall. She said the garden looked just like when Grandma was alive. Then quietly she added, "She would have been proud of you, Avery." I felt tears prick my eyes. "Maybe we could have lunch sometime," she offered. I said I'd like that. Isabel came to see me 6 months after the satellite office opened. She knocked on my private entrance. When I opened the door, her professional mask was firmly in place, but her eyes told a different story. She sat at Grandma's kitchen table and said she wanted a real relationship again. Then she mentioned that the office rotation twice a week was difficult and wondered if I could speak to Hargrove about changing it. And there it was. Not reconciliation, negotiation. Being sisters doesn't work on contracts, I said. But respect does. I'm open to rebuilding our relationship. But not because you want something from me. That's what got us here in the first place. She left without answering. But I saw something new in her expression, something that might have been understanding. A year has passed. I still teach elementary school. I still grade papers at Grandma's kitchen table. I still wake up every morning in the house where she loved me when no one else would. $750,000 sits in my investment account. Security I never imagined having. Freedom I never knew I needed. And yet money isn't the victory. The victory is walking through my own front door without fear. The victory is knowing that no one can force me out of what is rightfully mine. Grandma Clara knew my worth long before I did. She didn't just leave me a house. She left me a blueprint for how to protect myself. Quiet strength isn't about shouting louder than everyone else. It's about knowing your value so deeply that no one can convince you to sell it short. The most powerful response to injustice isn't anger. It isn't revenge. And it isn't confrontation. It's a decision made with clarity, executed with precision, and defended with absolute certainty. And sometimes the quietest signatures speak louder than the loudest arguments,